This is the intro to PowerPoint, how to use PowerPoint. This file is in your handouts you might want to keep folder if you downloaded the class files out of probably week 2 in Moodle. It is also in the PowerPoint week all by itself as a link. So you might want to download it and use it. So how to use PowerPoint. I'm going to turn this on as a slideshow. So up here on my quick access toolbar, I've got a slideshow button, start from beginning. And it puts me in as an actual PowerPoint. To go forward in PowerPoint, you click almost anything. The mouse, the space bar, enter, down arrow, right arrow, page down, any of those things will have you go forward. And there's also an on-screen thing that you may or may not be able to see that has forward and backward buttons if you hover in the correct area, which is bottom left at the moment. Your mileage may vary as different things update and depending on the system you are on. Okay, so this is my title slide, and it has a different shape than the rest of my slides because it is title slide layout type design, all those words. We will see more about that later and on your final. Okay, so first type your text in. Type in one main topic per slide. We do not have to cram everything onto a single slide because these things don't cost anything extra. It used to be that people would, on those plastic sheets with the overhead projector, they would write absolutely everything that they could possibly fit onto their slide, and then they'd put a sheet of paper over it and pull it down one line at a time to reveal the information. And that was done because that made sense with that technology. The plastic sheets were expensive, the acetates were expensive, and they were also slippery. You didn't want to have very many of them. When you convert from some of the old technologies to the new, you don't want to do a direct translation. Then you have problems similar to if you put text into Google to translate it from English to Spanish, and then you put the Spanish back in and you translate it from Spanish to English. It doesn't come out the way it went in. It's different. So you want to think about what it is you're trying to do and not just do a brute force translation. So here, I discourage people from having their bullet points fly in one at a time. That's really only useful if you're doing something. The only use case I've seen for that I agree with is you have your question and then you wait a little bit to hear answers, and then you click the button for your answer to come in, and then you ask the next question, and then you can wait and then have the answer come in. So I've seen that work well. Otherwise, if you have more points, just make more slides. Okay, so we're going to type our text in first. Don't put in too much text. Short phrases, little bits. If you put in tons and tons and tons of text, PowerPoint will start to shrink your text to fit. And then when you go and put it up on the screen, you're going to have a big, huge wall of text that's really tiny. And that causes all kinds of problems. People are squinting and trying to read, and you know, there's too much text. They can't get through all of it. I have seen this happen at presentations. There's so many things that that I've seen. And in here, I'm trying to give you tips so you can avoid the terrible things that I've seen. Okay, so don't have too much information. How many slides should you have? If you're not doing vacation slides where you're just clicking through pictures, here's Big Ben, here's Grand Canyon, here's the Tower of London, here's, you know, whatever things from my vacation, you're going to have a couple minutes per slide. So if you have a homework assignment, if you have a class project where you're supposed to talk for 15 minutes. It's very common for teachers to say, you take this part, other person's going to take that part. Each of you go away, research information, come back and teach it to the class. If you have 15 minutes, you only want maybe 5 slides. If you come back with 20 slides, you're going to have a serious problem. So when you're trying to estimate, you want a couple of minutes for each slide. If you have a group of 5 people and you're going to talk for 15 minutes, if everybody comes back with 4 slides each, you're going to have way too much. You won't be able to get through it. Pick a design. So you're going to choose a design. They're also called templates. You're going to choose a design. Make sure that you don't pick a terrible one. So these are actual real examples from PowerPoint of designs. They're not in the current version. There are equally bad ones in the current version. So be careful what you choose. This one looks like there's light coming in. It looks like somebody left a window open or a curtain open on the side of the auditorium. And you can't you put light text on this and then the white is a problem. You put dark text on it. You know, it's very bad. You want your background to be a light color and you want your text to be dark. This has all kinds of little skinny lines through it, and in the right situation with fluorescent lights, it can actually vibrate, give people headaches, very bad. So be careful. Contrast, you definitely want contrast. So black text on a white background is the best. Now we go through fashions. There was a fashion a few years back where everything was black backgrounds, dark navy blue backgrounds, and white text. And that is a problem for people's eyeballs. People's eyes have difficulty with that. You see an after image. So if you stare at this on your computer, it often doesn't work through when it gets translated through other things. But if you stare in the middle of this for about a minute and then you look over at a white wall or a white piece of paper, you will see floating there the flag in the correct colors. And that's because your eye gets fatigued. The cones and the rods in your eyes get fatigued, and then you see the opposite colors. Same thing happens if you have white text on a black background. You stare at it, stare at it, stare at it. Then you look down at your paper and you see lines. So watch out for that. Also, white text on a black background always is smaller. It looks smaller, even though it's exactly the same number of pixels. Because of the way human brains work, we connect the dots, and the white is just background normally, and the dark is the content, and our brain connects those up, and white text on a black background always looks smaller. So you have to make it bold to get to the same effect. It's a really bad idea. Never do it. I mean, unless your boss is forcing you to do it. If you have a teacher who says that's how you have to do the assignment, then you do it. But otherwise, don't. And on my final, it'll absolutely be wrong if you have white text on a black background. So FYI. I will be grading you according to what I think is best practices. And that's all written out in extreme detail on the handout for the final. Okay. Serif or sans serif. So this first line, monitors have huge dots and don't do serif well at all. That is a sans serif font. It is without. So sans is French or Latin for without. It would be like sin serif, I guess, in Spanish. This is an example of a serif font, this second bullet point, and it has little thin flourishes at the edges of the letters, and they tend to have the thick and thin a little bit like calligraphy, and those thin parts are difficult for monitors to show, especially on overhead projectors. Overhead projectors are not as good as your computer monitor. They have fewer dots. They have lower resolution, so they are harder to read. So try to choose a sans serif font. Adding headers and footers. So this is also on your final, definitely. And most of the places I've worked in my life, I've had to put a footer on the bottom of all of my slides saying, you know, confidential, intellectual property of company I was working for. So often you have to brand all of your things this way. And you may just want to do it because it helps you to keep track of things. The big things for doing this, we have date and time. You can type in a specific date or you can have it update automatically. Be aware, every time you say update automatically on a date, in Word, like in that vocab I gave you as a sample, the cover page I gave you as a sample, it has an automatic date. Excel, you can do an automatic date. PowerPoint, every time you open the file, the date will update. And that includes when you are, quote, just printing, unquote. There's no such thing as just printing. You always have to open the document in the correct product and then print. And at that moment, your date will update. So be aware of that. You may want a specific date to mark this in time, or you may want it to always change. But just be aware you have that choice and what's going to happen. You definitely want the slide number on. You definitely want the footer for the final and probably for life. And down here in the footer for your final, you can put CIS 101 and your name and click Don't Show on Title slide. I will be looking for that on the final. Don't show on title slide, and that is generally how people do it. That's generally the fashion. And then you click Apply to All. You want the same logic on every single slide, and this is different than Word and different than Excel. By default, in Word and Excel and most things, by default, automatically the same exact header, same exact footer goes on every page. This is different. If you don't say apply to all, if you only say apply, it's only going to put it on that one slide. That's a bad choice. That's going to make lots of extra work for you, give you the chance to make typos on some of your slides. That is almost always the wrong choice. The default is apply to all. And then it will behave like header and footer in most things. And watch out, there's two tabs here. People never notice. Then they get onto notes and handouts tab by mistake, and they get different options and they're not sure where they are. So make sure you're on slide. And this picture down here, this little preview, shows you approximately where it's going to appear. Okay, adding pictures. So you can put in pictures and just, this is the chapter in the book that we didn't cover. Be careful that you resize them from the corners. I'm going to show fiddling around with pictures in the video about the final, so I'm not going to really do it here. Biggest thing is, if you're resizing them, grab them by the corners. If you grab a side, you're going to stretch it or you're going to squish it. So be careful. And to add pictures in, all you have to do is drag and drop. You don't have to go through all the things in the menu. It's not really necessary. Okay, animations. I already talked about how much I hate bullets flying in. And it really seems like a cool thing. You're fiddling around with it, you're making it work, maybe you add some sounds, and you don't realize how horrible it is until you're standing in front of your audience waiting for the stuff to fly in. So we only do one chapter of PowerPoint out of the book, and I think that is plenty. You can learn everything that is good, in my humble opinion. You can learn everything that is good and useful in a very short period of time for PowerPoint. Okay, printing. We can do lots of things in post-production. So similar to in Excel, how we can radically change the way things print. In PowerPoint, same thing. So there are a couple of good printing options. 3 up or 3 slides per page. It looks like this down in this old dialog box. Those are really good for handouts. So if your teacher gives you a PowerPoint and you want to print it out so that you can make notes during class, this is the one you want to do. Some of them, like notes pages, if you're the speaker, then notes pages, you can see a little picture of it. It's got the slide on top, and then it's got whatever you wrote in notes underneath, and nobody ever sees those notes except in this view. The notes go here underneath. So you would type some notes down here. This is really good if you're nervous about public speaking. You put everything that you want to say down here, and then you print off the notes view for yourself, and then you just read from it as you're giving your talk. That's perfectly acceptable. I'm going to resume my slideshow. I don't have a button up here for resume, so I have to go over here to slideshow. Then I can say from current slide, boom, and I'm back in my presentation where I left off. Okay, most of the options are a complete waste of time, so don't use them, in my humble opinion. Okay, and that is the end of the how to do PowerPoint, and now I'm going to show you, okay, when I get to the end, it shows me a black screen, which is nice, so people aren't seeing my desktop. And then I'm going to come in here and just very quickly show you a PowerPoint. So I'm going to say home. Oh, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to go Control N, new presentation, click to add a title, slides, by me, go away, side panel. And then I want to say new slide. I don't want to get in here and fiddle around with all these choices and things, because probably what I want is also the default. So the defaults in this are mostly very good. So I just click the top part of this, gives me a new slide. So what do I have? Like Snoopy and stuff about Snoopy. Very exciting. A couple more slides about a couple more dogs. My last one would be, do you have any questions? Okay, so there's the basic shape. I put in my text first, and that lets me know how much room I have. Then I'm going to choose a design. I like this one. I like to make it blue. I like to close that silly column. I like this because it gives me a lot of room. It's got a little bit of decoration, but the decoration doesn't get in the way. I don't like that one because it's a dark background and I'll get white text and it will not look good. Okay. Closing that. So I think it's making noise. Okay, so I pick something that gives me lots of room. And then I'm going to put the other stuff out here that are going to take up space before I do my pictures. So I'm going to go Insert, Header, Footer, check all 4 boxes, put something in here, like if it was my final, I'd go CIS 101, student, final, something, I don't know. Apply to all. Okay. Now, did it really apply to all? Well, it applied the same logic. So on this slide, I have a footer. On this slide, I have a footer. Yes, yes. Title slide. No footer. It's applying the same logic. Are you a title slide? Nope. Okay, you get a footer. Are you a title slide? Nope. Okay, you get a footer. Are you a title slide? Yes. Oh, you don't get a footer. And that is coming off of this title slide. That's what it means by title. This says title and content. Maybe it means that too. Nope. Nope. It doesn't mean that, but it says it. Yeah, but it doesn't mean it. It says it, but it doesn't mean it. That is title slide. That's the only one. How about title only? That seems kind of, no. No, 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 no. What about this one? Title and caption? No. Still no. How about others that might be somewhere? No. That is title slide for the purposes of, are we a title slide? Do you get a header footer? And I always edit my header footer on not the title slide. Because when I go into title, all this stuff is grayed out and it gets kind of confusing and irritating. Cancel. I'll go into any other slide and do it. Now, often I get students who say, oh, I can't get the title to stop being on my title slide. So they might, I'm going to delete this slide. So they might have their first slide that they think is their title, and it might not be a title slide. So yes, it's the first slide, but it is not layout type title. It is title and content. So sometimes students have all of their slides are layout style title, and then their footer does not appear on any of them. That's a big problem. Or sometimes none of them are, and then they have the opposite problem. Also, the title slide doesn't have to be the first one. I'm going to stick it right there in the middle. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. I wouldn't do that on purpose, but it is a thing that can happen. And I think usually it happens to people when they're, you know, they don't do that on purpose, but in the process of making some slides, deleting some slides, moving some slides around, it's super easy to move these around. It's really nice. Okay, so I've done all that, and then I would put some pictures in, and I would just drag and drop them, which you can see in the other presentation, in the other video. And then when I go to print, I'm going to say File, Print. And the way I remember this is I hate full page slides. I really hate wasting a whole sheet of paper and all that extra everything for full page. So that's my mnemonic. I hate full page slides. Click on it. Oh, hey, 3 slides per page. So much nicer. Any questions? All right. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Go forth. Make good life choices.